All right, guys. So here we are, Genesis 18, and there is a number there on the live feed that you can text, or we'll go chapter by chapter. So here we are in Genesis 18. And Yahweh appeared unto him in the plains of Mamre. And remember, this is Abraham. We're talking about Abraham. We shifted from Adam and Hava, his wife. We went through the flood. We talked about Noah. We then shifted to Abraham. And now this is a big part of the life of Abraham. So who is the him here? Abraham. And he sat in the tent door in the heat of the day, and he lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, three men stood by him. And when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door and bowed himself toward the ground. And he said, Yahweh, if now I have found favor in thy sight, pass not away, I pray thee, from thy servant. Now, in your King James, it says, my Lord. It's a belief that Abraham recognized that these were not just common people; they were angelic beings that had come to visit. And there's an entire teaching as to the identity of at least one of these. And then he continues on, let a little water, I pray you, be fetched, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree, and I will fetch a morsel of bread, and comfort ye your hearts. After that you shall pass on, for therefore are you come to your servant. And they said, so do as you have said. And Abraham hastened into the tent unto Sarah, and said, make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes upon the hearth. And Abraham ran unto the herd, and fetched a calf, tender and good, and gave it unto a young man, and he hasted to dress it. And he took butter and milk and the calf which he had dressed, and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree, and they did eat. Look at this. Very important. Was a ancient custom where you would just attend to your guests while they ate, make sure they had plenty of drink, make sure they had plenty of food. You didn't eat with them because your job was to be the host and attend to them. And they said, and they said to him, where is Sarah thy wife? And he said, behold, in the tent. And he said, I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life, and lo, Sarah thy wife shall have a son. So who's saying this? One of the angelic beings. Okay. And Sarah heard it in the tent door, which was behind him. And that's something. Now remember, it gives a little bit of a reason why she might have chuckled incredulously here. Okay. Now, Abraham and Sarah were old and well stricken in age, and it ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. Now, so what does this mean? That her period ceased. The manner of women has to do with the cycle that a woman undergoes every month. The period has ceased among her. Now imagine this. This is truly a miraculous thing. Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, I am waxen old. Shall I have pleasure, my master being old also? And Yahweh said unto Abraham, wherefore did Sarah laugh, saying, Shall I of a surety bear a child which am old? And that's something. Is anything too hard for Yahweh? And this is what I want you guys to latch on to today. It does not matter what the medical professionals say in your life. It does not matter what the banks or what the politicians or what any other person, particularly family, can be the worst when it comes to something that the Father has said to you, and you're getting a lot of criticism, you're getting a lot of negativity about that. And I want you to remember this question that's posed: is anything too hard for Yahweh? Now, what do you think the answer is to that? I would say a resounding no, and I think we could all agree to that. And there's nothing too hard for Almighty Yahweh. So here's what this angel said: is anything too hard for Yahweh? So at the time appointed, I will return unto thee according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. Then, oh, look at this, look at this. Sarah denied, saying, I laughed not, for she was afraid. And he said, nay, but you did laugh. Now, notice, you know what I've noticed here? The thing is about the divine, it gets right to the heart of the truth. You know, in civilized society, in polite society, And I speak to myself because I'm kind of this way. If I know someone's saying something I and that is false or incorrect, and I think probably a lot of men are like me. We just I was raised in a certain amount of civil polity, and if someone said something to you that you knew was false, but you were in the public domain, you would just kind of, okay, maybe laugh a little bit, and or maybe smile a little bit, okay, just kind of let it pass. But the divine doesn't allow that. The divine, and speaking of the presence of Yahweh, gets to the heart of the matter and holds on to it with an ironclad grasp. And notice this. Then Sarah denied, saying, I laughed not, for she was afraid. And the angel said, Nay, but you did laugh. You see, there's no way you can hide anything from our master. And Sarah discovered this. And not only that, but there is confrontation. Confrontation. That's what that a lot of times in civil society, men try to avoid confrontation lest there be conflict. Okay. And the men rose up from thence and looked towards Sodom, and Abraham went with them to bring them on the way. And Yahweh said, Shall I hide from Abraham that thing which I do, seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him? For I know him that he will command his children and his household after him, and they shall keep the way of Yahweh to do justice and judgment, that Yahweh may bring upon Abraham that which he has spoken of him. And Yahweh said, look at this, because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous, I will go down now and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it. Okay. So, what is the cry that is speaking of here? I would wager that it's oppression. The cries of those who are crying out under the heavy heel of oppression, of criminal behavior on the part of these people. We read in other books like the book of Jasher goes into considerable detail about this event, and it talks about how they literally would entrap the wayfarer and kill them and leave them. In other words, they're horrible things like you could read in there. It talks about what these sodomites were doing, and not just sexual sin, but I'm talking about literally mistreating the wayfarer and the stranger in such a way that uh, their own population among the Sodom and Gomorrahites couldn't even, no one was allowed to even feed them or attend to them. You see, this is wickedness. This is wickedness when the righteous are prevented, or at least those who would do a righteous thing are prevented from doing a righteous thing by the wicked. See, uh, the man who knows to do good but doeth it not, to him it is sin. You see, like James. Because their sin is very grievous, and I'll go down now and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it, which is come unto me, and if not, I will know. And the men turned their faces from thence and went toward Sodom. But Abraham stood yet before Yahweh. And so here's this angel, you see, this angel. And Abraham drew near and said, Wilt you also destroy the righteous with the wicked? Okay, so let me just mention here, if you study this carefully and you understand about Messiah and how Messiah was pre-incarnate, he pre-existed, it is believed, and I happen to be one of them, and there's many, many, a lot of your Orthodox, more, seminary type people, they believe that this was the pre-incarnate Yeshua, okay, that was coming to Abraham and in an angelic form. Okay. And so remember, the Father's in the Son, and the Son, the Son is in the Father, and the Father's in the Son. Remember, he said that about it. There's a unity there, a spiritual unity. So, and he pre-existed. And in fact, John says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Elohim, and the Word was Elohim. Well, who's that Word? Well, it's Yeshua, pre-existent Yeshua. And so here he is, he's bargaining. Abraham's bargaining with the divine. And Abraham says, Peradventure there be 50 righteous within the city. Will you also destroy and not spare the place for the 50 righteous that are therein? That be far from thee to do after this manner, to slay the righteous with the wicked. and that the righteous should be as the wicked. In other words, as and their punishment be the same. That be far from thee. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right? And Yahweh said, if I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I will spare all the places for their sakes. And Abraham answered and said, behold, now I have taken upon me to speak unto Yahweh, which am but dust and ashes. Okay, so he's kind of pressing further in his questioning, isn't he? Okay. And he says, peradventure there shall lack 5 of the 50 righteous. So we're talking about 45 now, right? 45 righteous. Will you destroy all the city for lack of 5? And the angel said, if I find there 40 and 5, I will not destroy it. And he spake unto him yet again and said, peradventure there shall be 40 found there. And he said, I will not do it 46. So here's the angel answering. Okay, so we're at 50, now we're at 45, now we're at 40. And Abraham said to the angel, oh, let not Yahweh be angry, and I will speak. Peradventure there shall be 30 found there. And the angel said, I will not do it if I find 30 there. And Abraham said, behold, now I've taken upon me to speak unto Yahweh. In other words, what he's saying here, I've gone this far, I might as well go all the way. Peradventure there shall be 20 found there. And the angel said, I will not destroy it for 20's sake. Look at this process. You see, Abraham was trying to figure out where does Yahweh's justice end? Okay. In other words, he's concerned about the justice of the idea of the innocent being punished with the wicked. Okay, and I think that's probably something that speaks inside all of us. One of the things that bothers me is when you hear about these situations where you have a judge, you have a district attorney, and you have a lackadaisical what do you call a representative attorney for, let's say, someone accused of a crime. Okay. And they go through all the rigmarole, and it turns out, and so according to all of the judicial stuff, somehow this guy is found to be guilty. But guess what? What if he's not? What if he's innocent? That kind of injustice for me personally is something that really gets deep down, and it stirs up anger. Unjust punishment stirs up anger. Doesn't that stir up anger in you and resentment? And, we cry out, unfair, not right. Well, this is the heart of Abraham. He's bargaining with the Almighty. And so here we're at 30. He says, I'm not going to do it for 30. And he says, behold, now I've taken upon me to speak unto Yahweh. Peradventure there shall be 20 found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for 20's sake. Okay. And here's I think this might be the last one. And Abraham said, oh, let not Yahweh be angry, and I will speak yet but this once. Peradventure 10 shall be found there. And the angel said, I will not destroy it for 10's sake. And Yahweh went his way as soon as he had left communing with Abraham, and Abraham returned unto his place. That's quite a powerful, quite. Okay, so now we're at Genesis 19. And there came 2 angels to Sodom at evening time, and Lot sat in the gate of Sodom, and Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them. Notice this. So Lot at least had a semblance of what it means to be hospitable, doesn't he? And he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. Where do you think he learned this from? This humility, this welcoming, this, you think he might have learned that from his uncle Abraham? I think probably so. And he said, behold, now, my masters, turn in, I pray you, into your servant's house, and tarry all night, and wash your feet, and you shall rise up early and go on your ways. And they said, nay, but we will abide in the street all night. And Lot pressed upon them greatly, and they relented and turned in unto him. So I'm just adding a few other things here to kind of give it context, guys. And entered into his house, and he made them a feast, and did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat. But before they lay down, the men of the city, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round, both old and young, all the people from every quarter. And they called unto Lot and said to him, Where are the men which came into thee this night? Bring them out to us that we may know them. Okay, this is the Bible's way of describing in a indirect way that they wanted homosexual relations. Okay, and it goes into detail the kind of sexual sins that were happening in Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and Bela, the five cities of the plains. And you want to learn more details about that, read in the book of Jasher or in the book of Jubilees. There might be some in there too, but I think mostly in the book of Jasher. And Lot went out at the door unto them and shut the door after them. And he said, I pray you, brethren, do not so wickedly. Behold, now I have two daughters which have not known man. Let me, I pray you, bring them out to you, and do ye to them as good is in your eyes. Now, some might say, oh, the horror. And yes, it was a horrible situation. But see, what Lot was trying to do was trying to give them the natural course, even though it was his precious daughters, versus you have to understand that in the Middle East and still today in the biblical ethic, that if you took guests into your home and you were being hospitable to them to the level that Abraham was and Lot, you were responsible for their not only their sustenance, their rest, their shelter, but you were responsible for their security. Okay? So it was considered a horrific thing if their security was not secured. And so here he's even willing, he's trying to basically throw his daughters out to them because at least he's trying to show them that this is a natural way. The sodomite thing is an abomination, it's wickedness. And so, yes, it seems to the modern eye, it seems really, really quite bad. You know, either one sounds like a really bad thing. So he's saying this to these men, and only unto these men do nothing. He's saying this to this crowd of sodomites out there. For therefore came they under the shadow of my roof. And they said, this is the crowd said, stand back. Actually, I think this might be the angels. Let me see. Let me just read ahead here. And they said, stand back. And they said again, this one fellow come into sojourn, and he will needs be a judge. Now will we deal worse with thee than with them. Okay, so it's talking about one of the crowd, or the crowd, they're saying that. And the crowd said again, this one fellow came into sojourn, and he will needs be judged. Now we'll deal worse with you than them. So basically, they're threatening Lot now. And they pressed sore upon the man, even Lot, and came near to break the door. Okay, so now it shifts gears here, the angels. But the men put forth their hand and pulled Lot into the house to them. This would be the angels, okay? And shut the door. Sounds kind of like the door that was shut to the ark, right? When Yahweh shut the door, the wicked couldn't get in. And they smote the men that were at the door of the house with blindness, both small and great. Okay, so that they wearied themselves to find the door. Okay, so these are the angels striking these wicked men with blindness. And the men said unto Lot, Has there any besides? In other words, he's saying, who else is in the house? Because, you know, they're getting ready to evacuate. Son-in-law and thy sons and thy daughters and whatsoever thou hast in the city, bring them out of this place. So this is the angels warning Lot, saying, look, you need to get your family out of here now, or we'll destroy this place, because the cry of them is waxing great before the face of Yahweh, and Yahweh has sent us to destroy it. And Lot went out and spake unto his sons-in-law, which married his daughters, and said, Up, get you out of this place, for Yahweh will destroy the city. But he seemed as one that mocked unto his sons-in-law. In other words, they thought he was joking. They thought he's not being serious, he's joking. And when the morning arose, when the angels hasted Lot, saying, Arise, take thy wife and thy two daughters, which are here, lest thou be consumed in the iniquity of the city. And while he lingered, the men laid hold upon his hand, and upon the hand of his wife, and upon the hand of his two daughters, Yahweh being merciful unto them, and they brought them forth. You know what this sounds like? This sounds like what happened with Philip. Remember the evangelist? And how he just happened to, you know, he was going along in the Ethiopian eunuch. This is in the book of Acts, by the way. And the Ethiopian eunuch was reading from the book of Isaiah, and Philip uh, basically said, "Hey, do you know what you're reading there?" And so Philip then basically discloses the gospel to the Ethiopian eunuch, and the Ethiopian eunuch ends up converting and turning to Yeshua Messiah. And then what does it say? It said that it says that Philip was not there. He disappeared. Okay, so it's almost like they took Lot and his wife, the two daughters, and it's like instant, like it's kind of like teleportation. To use a science fiction term, immediate from one place to another, just like that. Yahweh has that power; He can do it. And they immediately set them outside the city. And it came to pass when they had brought them forth abroad that he said, "Escape for thy life, look not behind thee, neither stay you in all the plain. Escape to the mountain, lest you be consumed." And Lot said unto them, "Please don't, my master. Behold, now thy servant hath found favor in thy sight, and thou hast magnified the mercy which you have showed unto me in saving my life. And I cannot escape to the mountain, lest some evil take me, and I die. Behold, now this city is near to flee unto, and it is a little one. Oh, let me escape thither. Is it not a little one?" Notice this. We have examples all throughout Scripture. Is there room to bargain with Yahweh? I pose this question to you. Is there room to bargain with Yahweh in your life, in your relationship with the Master Yeshua? I think so. He's a reasonable Elohim. There's room to bargain. And here is Lot bargaining. And he goes on, "And my soul shall live." He would rather be in a city. He's not used to the rugged mountains. This would be hard. He could possibly perish for lack of sustenance. And he said unto them, "See, I have accepted thee concerning this thing also." In other words, these are angels saying, "Yes, go ahead. I'll let you get away with this. That I will not overthrow the city for the which thou hast spoken. Haste thou, escape thither, for I cannot do anything till you be gone hither." He's saying, "Hurry up, because I've got judgment to rain on these people." Therefore, the name of the city was called Zoar. The sun was risen upon the earth when Lot entered into Zoar. Then Yahweh rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah brimstone and fire from Yahweh out of heaven. And he overthrew those cities and all the plain and all the inhabitants of the cities, that which grew upon the ground, for his wife. Let me stop here. And he overthrew those cities and all the plain and all the inhabitants of the cities, and that which grew upon the ground. Okay, period. Now, this is important. This is important here. Remember when Yeshua said to his disciples, "He who takes the plow and looks back is not worthy of the kingdom"? Okay, you can't be double-minded in the kingdom, my friends. And here is Lot's wife. But his wife looked back behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. Now, does this mean that she broke from him and ran toward Sodom? Is it just a matter of her just kind of turning her head? I think it's far more dramatic than that. I think what she did is she broke from the grasp of her husband and ran straight back to Sodom and Gomorrah because, maybe there was still family there. Maybe, who knows, what the reason she did so. And Abraham got up early in the morning. And so she became a pillar of salt. Okay. And so literally, some powerful thing that happened, and she just, early in the morning to the place where he stood before Yahweh. So Abraham's up now, and he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah and toward all the land of the plain, and beheld, and lo, the smoke of the country went up as the smoke of a furnace. Okay, so Abraham sees all that's happening. And it came to pass when Elohim destroyed the cities of the plain, that Elohim remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow. Now, notice this. I want you to understand something here. Why? Was it because Lot himself was so greatly righteous that Yahweh spared him? I suggest to you that the truth is that it was because Abraham was so completely devoted to following the Father that Lot was given mercy for the sake because of Abraham. Because of Abraham, this is what it says. When he overthrew the cities in which Lot dwelt, and Lot went up out of Zoar and dwelt in the mountain, and his two daughters with him, for he feared to dwell in Zoar, and he dwelt in the cave, he and his two daughters. So now Lot is now heading up to the mountains. So now it's completely shifting gear now, the narrative. So these events have happened. Lot is settling into the mountains with his daughters. And now we're going to talk about this sort of unsavory episode. And the firstborn said unto the younger, Our father is old, and there is not a man in the earth to come in unto us after the manner of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. That sounds a little bit kind of like what happened with Judah and what was that widow? Anyway, this it's like incest kind of thing going on. And they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with her father, and he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. He must have drunk an awful lot. And it came to pass on the morrow that the firstborn said unto the younger, Behold, I lay yesternight with my father. Let us make him drink wine this night also, and go you in and lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night also, and the younger arose and lay with him, and he perceived not that she lay down, nor when she arose. He was drunk as a skunk. Thus were both the daughters of Lot with child by their father. And the firstborn bare a son, and called his name Moab, and the same is the father of the Moabites unto this day. And the younger, she also bare a son, and called his name Ben-Ami. So it's like Ami is like my people. Ben is son, so we have son of my people. Okay. The same is the father of the children of Ammon unto this day. Okay, so here we are, Genesis 20. And Abraham journeyed from thence toward the south country and dwelled between Kadesh and Shur, and sojourned in Gerar. And Abraham said of Sarah his wife, She is my sister. Okay, so why did he say this? Because the custom was in these ancient peoples, and this was something that was talked about in the book of Enoch. Um, how one of the wickednesses of men, what they would do is if they saw a beautiful woman that belonged to another man, they would just kill the man. You know, in their wicked mind, that's simple enough. They kill the man and then they take the wife, right? And so Abraham understood about the wickedness of what they were doing. And so he says, now it's not a total lie. She was his half sister. But it was not a full disclosure either, but he did so for the sake of expediency because of the wickedness of man and the potential for that. And Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. But Elohim came to Abimelech in the dream by night and said to him, Behold, thou art but a dead man for the woman you have taken, for she is a man's wife. But Abimelech had not come near her, and he said, O Yahweh, wilt you slay also a righteous nation? Said he not unto me, She is my sister? And she, even she herself, said, He is my brother, and integrity of my heart and innocency of my hands have I done this. Now it's interesting that at least Abimelech was righteous enough, and then also earlier we learned about Pharaoh. The same kind of thing happened to Pharaoh. And Elohim said unto him in the dream, Yea, I know that you did this in the integrity of your heart, for I also withheld thee from sinning against me. Therefore suffered I thee not to touch her. Now therefore restore the man his wife, for he is a prophet, and he shall pray for you, and you shall live. And if you restore her not, know you that you surely shall die, you and all that is yours. Therefore, Abimelech. By the way, this term Abimelech, it's like Avi-Melech. Literally, the translation is my father is king in the Hebrew. Rose early in the morning and called all his servants and told all these things in their ears, and the men were sore afraid. So they had a real fear of Almighty Yah, didn't they? And they had a fear of Yah's servants, in particular Abraham, after these events of Sodom and Gomorrah. Right? They knew this is a God you don't fool around with. So there's a fear engendered all throughout the land. Then Abimelech called Abraham and said unto him, What have you done unto us? And what have I offended thee, that you brought unto me on my kingdom a great sin? You have done deeds unto me that ought not to be done. And Abimelech said unto Abraham, What sawest you? What you hast, let's see here. Abimelech said unto Abraham, What sawest thou that thou hast done this thing? In other words, he's saying, What did I do? Cause you to do this, to not disclose the entirety of the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to me. Okay, so Abraham only disclosed the truth, which was, yeah, she was his half sister. And Abraham said, because I thought surely the fear of Elohim is not in this place. Okay, and they will slay me for my wife's sake. Okay, now I want you to understand this was a real thing. This happened all the time. If men saw a beautiful woman belonging to another man, they would just kill the man. It solves the problem to them, and they get to have a beautiful woman. And yet, indeed, she is my sister. She is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother. And she became my wife. And it came to pass, so in other words, there was a truth there. It came to pass when Elohim called me to wander from my father's house that I said unto her, This is thy kindness which you shall do unto me. At every place whither we shall come, say of me, He is my brother. And Abimelech took sheep and oxen and men servants and women servants and gave them unto Abraham and restored him Sarah his wife. Now notice this practice here of making restitution. When one has a critical error, whether they have transgressed or whether they are about to transgress, or whether you have approached unto that which is holy and you've messed up, it always helps to make restitution, to make it right. Okay, so this is what Abimelech understood, and even people in the ancient world understood this. And Abimelech said, Behold, my land is before you, dwell wherever it please thee. And unto Sarah he said, Behold, I have given thy brother 1,000 pieces of silver. Behold, he is to thee a covering of the eyes unto all that are with thee, and with all other. Thus she was reproved. So Abraham prayed unto Elohim, and Elohim healed Abimelech and his wife. Look at this. Do you understand that there are levels of spiritual authority? Abraham had a much higher spiritual authority than the king of an entire nation, okay? Because he was so close to our Heavenly Father. And his maidservants, so here's Abraham praying for them, and his maidservants, and they bare children, for Yahweh had fast closed up all the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. Okay, so notice the blessing here, that Yahweh sees children as a blessing. Our world today is doing everything it can to kill children. But Yahweh, his metric of blessing is increase, increase, not gold and silver. What's gold and silver going to do for you? But if you are surrounded by all your children, you see, this is a powerful thing. This is a great blessing. This is a blessing from heaven. Okay. And his maidservants, and they bare children, and Yahweh had fast closed up all the wounds of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. So this is closing up the womb is considered a curse of sorts in the economy of Yahweh, a curse of sorts. Okay, so that is that chapter of Abimelech. Right, Genesis 21. And Yahweh visited Sarah as he had said, and Yahweh did unto Sarah as he had spoken. For Yahweh conceived and bare Sarah a son in his old age, at the time of which Elohim had spoken to him. And Elohim called the name of his son that was born unto him, whom Sarah bare to him, Yitzhak, or Isaac, in the Anglican. But in the Hebrew, it's Yitzhak. And Abraham circumcised his son Yitzhak, being 8 days old. And by the way, Yitzhak, or Isaac, means laughter, as Elohim had commanded him. So here he is, he's already obeying, and he's circumcising. And Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born unto him. And Sarah said, Elohim hath made me to laugh, so that all that hear will laugh with me. Imagine that. Now here's a woman, she had no period anymore for who knows how many years. And she bore a son. And she said, Who would have said unto Abraham that Sarah should have given child suck? Children suck. In other words, given a child to her breast to receive milk. For I have borne him a son in his old age, and the child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast the same day that Isaac was weaned. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, which she had borne unto Abraham, mocking. Okay, now look at this here. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian. Remember, this is Ishmael. Remember, Abraham ran ahead of Yahweh's intended purpose, and it actually was Sarah that did so because she gave Hagar in other words, Hagar was singled out among the concubines or the covenant handmaids, the covenanted handmaids. I don't like the term concubine, but the covenanted handmaids to raise up a seed that would be the one that would inherit. Okay, so that was the idea of Abraham, but Yahweh said, this is not the way. I don't. It's not going to happen this way. Ishmael is going to inherit right along with the other boys from the other covenant handmaids, because you're going to get one from your wife, Sarah. And so what's happening here in verse 9, it goes into detail. It's actually there was a rivalry between Ishmael and Isaac. Isaac was very young. It wasn't a two-direction rivalry. It was Ishmael being very jealous. Now, the book of Jasher basically says that uh, Ishmael, being much older, was playing with Isaac in a very dangerous way. The idea of you ever seen like the English idea, maybe in some of these old stories, where a person would put an apple on their head and then another person would shoot a bow and arrow and try to hit the apple, but what if the aim is not good and the arrow goes into the head or into the chest? Then that's a deadly game, isn't it? Okay, so that's the idea of what was happening here. It uses this term. This really was a serious matter. Well, understand this. It was a life or death matter, and it's understandable why Sarah literally flipped out when this happened, when she saw what Ishmael was doing to Isaac. Wherefore she said unto Abraham, cast out this bondwoman and her son, for the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son, even with Isaac. Okay, so what was happening here is Ishmael was told something from his birth. Hagar was told something from her giving birth to Ishmael. That was it's kind of like hope deferred make the heart sick. Abraham made a mistake. He said, okay, you're going to be the one that's going to raise up seed for me to inherit. But then it's like he said, oh, I'm sorry. I was wrong. Yahweh came to me later on and said, nope, your son's not going to be it. Now imagine the kind of bitterness that would engender. Okay, so it's quite a serious matter here. And the thing was very grievous in Abraham's sight because of his son. Now, does this mean that because of the dangerous event and that he was really put in a difficult situation here? Because it's not just a matter of listening to his wife. That's really wasn't about, it was about literally safeguarding his heir. Okay. So this it seems like a very serious matter, and it seems almost like a breaking of a covenant to send a woman away. But if you understand more the events that were surrounding this, then it makes more sense. And Elohim said unto Abraham, let it not be grievous in thy sight because of the lad and because of thy bondwoman, and all that Sarah hath said unto thee, hearken unto thee, for in Isaac shall thy seed be called. Okay, so he's saying, look, you need to listen this time to Sarah. And also of the son of bondwoman will I make a nation, because he is thy seed. Okay. And Abraham rose up early in the morning and took bread and a bottle of water and gave it unto Hagar, put it on her shoulder and the child, and sent her away. And she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. And the water was spent in the bottle. She cast the child under one of the shrubs, and she went and sat her down against him a good way off, as it was a bow shot. For she said, let me not see the death of the child. And she sat over against him, lifted up her voice, and wept. And Elohim heard the voice of the lad. Why is it that Elohim heard the voice of the lad? Because he was a son of Abraham. You see that connection, that blood connection, that spiritual connection. And the angel of Elohim called Hagar out of heaven and said to her, what aileth thee, Hagar? Fear not, for Elohim has heard the voice of the lad where he is. Arise, lift up the lad, and hold him in thine hand, for I will make him a great nation. And Elohim opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water, and she went and filled the bottle with water and gave the lad drink. So is Yahweh able to put water in a parched and desert land? He most certainly can. And Elohim was with the lad, and he grew and dwelt in the wilderness, became an archer. Now, this part here, in the book of Jasher, it goes into detail about how Abraham would make regular trips to visit his son Ishmael. Okay, and even gave Ishmael some advice on a wife that he had married. And you'll have to get into that and read that yourself. But essentially, it's quite an expanded story. So Abraham didn't just cast her off completely. He followed up with them. He followed up to make sure all was well. He followed up. Okay, and so Ishmael now is dwelling in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took him a wife out of the land of Egypt. Notice this Egypt thing. They seem to really like these women out of Egypt, don't they? And it came to pass at that time that Abimelech and Pichol, the chief captain of his host, spoke unto Abraham, saying, Elohim is with thee in all that you do. Now therefore swear unto me here by Elohim that you will not deal falsely with me, nor with my son, nor with my son's son, but according to the kindness that I have done unto thee, that you shall do unto me and to the land wherein thou hast sojourned. So what's all this about here? What's all this about? The notoriety and the fame of Abraham. And not just Abraham, but the Elohim that Abraham served. The fearsomeness, the fiery wrathness. You see that the memo had gotten out to all of the surrounding nations, and they said, "Look, don't mess with this man, because you're going to have to contend with his God, and you don't want to contend with his God. I mean, he's destroyed nations. This God is deadly. Don't mess with this God." And so here are these nations again saying, "Hey, let's make peace with us, because we know that if we make peace with you, then we're making peace by extension with your God." See? And what happened to Sodom and Gomorrah is not going to happen to us. And Abraham said, I will swear. And Abraham reproved Abimelech because of a well of water which Abimelech's servants had violently taken away. And Abimelech said, I would not who has done this thing, neither did you tell me, neither yet heard of I but today. Well, it is possible. A king might not know everything that's going on in his kingdom, maybe. And all kinds of bad things happen. And Abraham took sheep and oxen, gave them unto Abimelech, and both of them made a covenant. And Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves. And Abimelech said unto Abraham, What mean these 7 ewe lambs that thou hast set by themselves? And he said, For these 7 ewe lambs thou shalt take of my hand, that they may be a witness unto me that I have digged this well. Now, here's what Abraham is literally doing here, is he's like purchasing the well. He's getting an agreement, because remember, it's Abimelech's herdsman that stole this well from Abraham, which, by the way, digging a well back then is not easy work. It's hard, laborious work. If you don't have a backhoe and you've got nothing but a hand tool and you've got to get down far enough to water, let me tell you, I know this because when I was a kid on an 80-acre horse farm, we would have to sometimes dig and fix a horse water source, which would be like one of these handle things, okay? And sometimes those things would get corroded, and the water would come out, and you would see the water coming up, and okay, it's time to dig down there. We got to dig, find out where the break is, and then we got to fix that thing. Okay, so that was kind of stuff we did on farm. Let me tell you, that was not easy work. It was hard. And you can see why they would fight over this, because first of all, water's at a premium out there. And so this is a very serious matter that's going on here. So here's this deal that he's made with Abimelech. Wherefore he called that place Beersheba, because there they swear both of them. Thus they made a covenant at Beersheba. Then Abimelech rose up, and Pichol, the chief captain of his host, in other words, his army captain, and they returned into the land of the Philistines. And Abraham planted a grove in Beersheba and called there on the name of Yahweh, El Olam. What is El Olam? Mighty one of all the earth. El Olam, mighty one of all the earth. And Abraham sojourned in the Philistines' land many days. Interesting. So is this the same Abimelech? My father is king. In Hebrew, this is my father. Is this the same one as the other one? Look, the idea back then was that a king was not democratically elected. It would be a strong man who had a very strong fatherly look. He was looking out for his people in a fatherly sense. Okay. And so the people would think of their king as their father, as in terms of like an order of family of sorts, or clan or tribe. See what I'm saying? So it could be a different one. It might be the same one, but the name itself means my father is king. Okay, we're going to pick it up here in Genesis 22. And it came to pass after these things that Elohim did tempt Abraham and said unto him, Abraham. And he said, Behold, here I am. And Yahweh said, Take now thy son, thine only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I shall tell thee of. Imagine being told this. This is one of the most troubling chapters in the Bible to me. And I can't be the only one that thinks this. Very troubling. Now, a little bit of background on this. I think in one of these books, it's either Jubilees or Jasher. The story is that it's similar to what happened with Job when Satan went before the sons of Elohim, and Yahweh is bragging about, do you not see my servant Job? Look at how he's perfect in all his ways. He gives me honor, and Satan gets, the only reason he's doing that is because you're nice to him. If you stop being nice to him and take away his toys, take away his candy and his fruitcake, oh, watch how quickly he turns against you then, okay? I'm just, you know, that's essentially what the story is, right, in Job? So, a similar situation happened. This heavenly discussion is happening with Abraham, and the adversary is challenging Yahweh. He says, "Look, I know he's serving you now, but just, really give him a real hard challenge." Okay, so this is a real hard challenge, isn't it? And Abraham rose up early in the morning and saddled his ass and took two of his young men with him and Isaac his son and clave the wood for a burnt offering and rose up and went unto the place which Elohim had told him. Then on the third day Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place far off. And Abraham said unto his young men, Abide ye here with the ass. Well, those men could interfere, wouldn't they, if they knew what Abraham had in store? And I and the lad will go yonder and worship and come again to you. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it upon Isaac his son, and he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and they went both of them together. And Isaac spoke unto Abraham his father and said, My father. And he said, Here I am, my son. And he said, Behold, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? And Abraham said, My son, Elohim will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. So they went both of them together. Now, was Abraham saying this in order to avoid disclosing to Isaac what he intended to do to Isaac? Or was he saying this because Abraham knew that this was merely a test and Yahweh, in his righteousness, would never allow him to follow through with this? And that therefore Yahweh would provide a lamb, a real lamb. Okay? That's something that, that's puzzled me. And they came to the place which Elohim had told him of, and Abraham built an altar there and laid the wood in order and bound Isaac his son and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand and took the knife to slay his son. Wow, he's really about to go through with this. And the angel of Yahweh called him out of heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And Abraham said, Here I am. And he said, Lay not thy hand upon the lad, neither do you anything unto him. For now I know that you fear Elohim, seeing that you have not withheld thy son, thine only son, from me. So think about this here. Abraham was 100 years old and he never had his own son. Imagine how he must have internally maybe lamented that. And then to get this promise. Imagine how his heart must have leapt. And then after all of that, to be given such a beautiful gift, to have the threat of it taken away as a sacrifice to prove your loyalty to Yahweh Elohim, this was a I don't know of too many challenges or temptations that was greater than this. If you know of any, tell me. But this is an incredible temptation and challenge to withhold obedience of what Yahweh and this could be why Abraham is considered the great father of the faith. He's not just the father of those of us in the Nazarene faith, but also of the house of Judah and also of Islam. Islam venerates Abraham. Okay, so you got the three major monotheistic religions of the world, and if you want to trace it back, you trace it back to Abraham, you see, and that's powerful. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up for a burnt offering in the stead of his son. And Abraham called the name of that place Yahweh Yireh. As is said to this day, on the mountain Yahweh provides. So Yahweh provides, doesn't he? And the angel of Yahweh called unto Abraham out of the heaven the second time and said, By myself have I sworn, saith Yahweh, for because you have done this thing and have not withheld thy son, thine only son, that in blessing I will bless you, and in multiplying I will multiply thy seed as the stars of the heaven, as the sand on the seashore. And thy seed shall possess the gates of his enemies. There's a whole study on this right here, possessing the gates of the enemies. Okay. And if you want a little detail about how this is manifested in the world today, read books by E. Raymond Capp. I'm not saying agree with everything he teaches, but he does get this right, this part right. And in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice. So Abraham returned unto his young men, and they rose up and went together to Beersheba. And Abraham dwelt at Beersheba. And it came to pass after these things, this Beersheba, by the way, is like 7 pools of water. It came to pass after those things that it was told Abraham, saying, Behold, Milcah, she hath also borne children unto thy brother Nahor. Uz his firstborn, and Buz his brother, and Kemuel the father of Aram, and Hesed, and Hazo, and Pildash, and Zidlaph, and Bethuel. And Bethuel begat Rebekah, whose these 8 Milcah did bear to Nahor, Abraham's brother. Remember, Abraham had 3 brothers. He had Nahor. He had no, let's see. This is the one that died in the fiery furnace, according to these other books. What was his name? Nahor. It'll come to me. But anyway, there's 3 brothers, and Abraham was one. And so here's these children being born to his brother's wife. And his concubine, whose name was Reumah, she bare also Teba and Gaham and Thahash and Maacha. Okay, interesting. All right, so that finishes the section here. And we see, Abraham dealing with family matters. We see Abraham with his greatest test ever. And I dare say, like I said before, probably the greatest temptation, that a man could possibly encounter, to the prospect of sacrificing his own sin, or his own son, rather. We should sacrifice our own sin, but we shouldn't sacrifice our own son. Let's put it that way. And he sacrificed to be willing to do this, the very thing that he had pined for hundreds of years. It's just an incredible thing. And then to see the great blessing. I mean, with great obedience comes great blessing. Okay, that's essentially the message here. Okay, and so that is the completion of the Torah section. Okay, so Malachi chapter 1, the burden of the word of Yahweh to Israel by Malachi. I have loved you, saith Yahweh. Yet you say, wherein hast you loved us? Was not Esau Jacob's brother, saith Yahweh? Yet I loved Jacob, and I hated Esau. When it says I hated Esau, it means that he did not prefer Esau. Esau was not a man after Yahweh's heart, and laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness. Whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places, saith Yahweh of hosts. They shall build, but I will throw down. They shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom Yahweh hath indignation forever. And your eyes shall see, and you shall say, Yahweh will be magnified from the border of Israel. A son honoreth his father, and a servant his master. If then I be a father, where is mine honor? And if I be a master, where is my fear? Saith Yahweh of hosts unto you, O priests, that despise my name. Now notice the parallel here with Isaac submitting himself to his father. Okay? And ye say, Wherein have ye despised thy name? Ye offer polluted bread upon mine altar, and ye say, Wherein have ye polluted thee? In that ye say, The table of Yahweh is contemptible. And if you offer the blind for sacrifice, is it not evil? And if you offer the lame and sick, is it not evil? Offer it now unto your governor. Will he be pleased with thee and accept thy person? Saith Yahweh of hosts. And now I pray you, beseecheth El that he will be gracious, that beseech El that he will be gracious unto us. This hath been by your means. Will he regard your persons? Saith Yahweh of hosts. In other words, Yahweh is no respecter of persons. Doesn't care what economic level you are, what color of skin you are, what kind of background you have. Guess what? Yahweh's no respecter of persons. You know what Yahweh respects? Relationship. Relationship with him. Who is there among you that would shut the doors for naught? Neither do ye kindle fire on mine altar for naught. I have no pleasure in you, saith Yahweh of hosts. Neither will I accept an offering at your hand. In other words, peoples whose hearts are hard and not compliant with Yahweh's ways, guess what? Doesn't matter if they go through the rigmarole of obedience. Yahweh knows the heart. Far from the rise of the sun, even unto the going down of the same, my name shall be great among the Gentiles, and in every place incense shall be offered unto my name, a pure offering. For my name shall be great among the heathen, saith Yahweh of hosts. And we saw that in our Torah portion, didn't we? Abimelech and others wanted to make peace with Abraham because they wanted to make peace with the Elohim that Abraham served. But you have profaned it, in that you say the table of Yahweh is polluted, and the fruit thereof, even his meat is contemptible. Ye said also, Behold, what a weariness it is, and you have snuffed at it, saith Yahweh of hosts. And you brought that which was torn, and the lame, and the sick, thus you brought an offering. Should I accept this at your hand? Does Yahweh want second or third best? He wants first. We owe him the first, the best. Saith Yahweh, but cursed be the deceiver which hath in his flock a male, and voweth and sacrifice unto Yahweh a corrupt thing. For I am the great king, saith Yahweh of hosts, and my name is dreadful among the heathen. Okay, so we see some parallels here in this section here. And what I'm going to do is move right on to the renewed covenant scriptures, and we'll finish up for today. Okay, so there is a parallel here, and you can see what's here for us. And this is 2 Peter chapter 2. But there were false prophets also among the people, even as there shall be false teachers among you, who privily shall bring in damnable heresies, even denying the master that bought them, and bring upon themselves swift destruction. You think that these so-called ministers that are bringing the LGBTQ into their, in other words, in teaching positions. I'm not, the assemblies are for sinners, sinners that want to get right with Elohim. So that's not the issue, but for them to lower the standards of Yah and put LGBTQ people into the pastorate or into eldership, you see, there's a big difference there. And it's a damnable heresy, isn't it? And many shall follow their destructive ways, by reason of whom the way of truth shall be evil spoken of. And through covetous shall they with feigned words make merchandise of you. You know what I think of here? I think of these mega churches that are gimme, 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 gimme all the time. Gimme, gimme, gimme. They are driving around in limos and flying in these $1 million aircraft, private aircraft, and they're building these incredible palaces. And what happens every Sunday? Gimme, 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 gimme. Okay? They make merchandise of you, whose judgment now of a long time lingereth not, and their damnation slumbereth not. For if Yahweh spared not the angels of sin, but cast them down to the abyss, and delivered them into the chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment, who are these angels, do you suppose? I think if you study this, you'll find out they are the 200 beings that came down to Mount Hermon and made a pact with one another. That they were going to mess up the creative order and go in unto human women and produce the race of giants. And here's another clue. And spared not the old world, but Noah, the eighth person, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood upon the world of the wicked. Okay. And here's what we read about today. And turning cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemned them with an overflow, making them an example unto those that after should live wicked. And delivered just Lot, vexed with the filthy conversation of the wicked. For that righteous man dwelling among them and seeing and hearing vexed his righteous soul from day to day with their unlawful deeds. All of this, if all of this occurred, which it did, and he goes on, he says, Yahweh knows how to deliver the reverent out of temptations and to reserve the unjust unto the day of judgment to be punished, but chiefly them that walk after the flesh in the lust of uncleanness and despise government. What kind of government is this talking about here? Do you think he's talking about civil government? I think he's talking about spiritual government. I think that's what he's talking about. Okay. Even those kings didn't despise spiritual government. How do we know that? Because those kings, in other words, when I'm talking about the kings that came and made peace with Abraham, because they recognize, oh, wow, this guy's on a higher spiritual rank. And he serves an Elohim that's fearsome. And so they at least respected the order of spiritual things. And they called him, this man's a prophet. He said he's a prophet, right? Presumptuous are they, self-willed, they are not afraid to speak evil of dignities. Whereas angels, which are greater in power and might, bring not railing accusation against them before Yahweh. Okay? But these are now, what is this? We're talking about here, it's spiritual principalities and powers that have been judged. And these, as natural brute beasts made to be taken and destroyed, speak evil of the things they understand not, and shall utterly perish in their own corruption, and shall receive the reward of unrighteousness, as they that count it pleasure to riot in the daytime. Now, notice how these guys are mixed right in to the assemblies here. He seems to imply they're mixed right in, like Balaam. You know, these Balaam characters mixed right in. Spots they are blemishes, sporting themselves with their own deceivings while they feast with you. So he's speaking to the Kadosh ones, right? Having eyes full of adultery that cannot cease from sin, beguiling unstable souls, a heart they have exercised with covetous practices, cursed children. It's pretty strong words. Which have forsaken the right way and are gone astray, following the way of Balaam, the son of Bosor, who loved the wages of unrighteousness. But Balaam was rebuked for his iniquity. The dumb ass, speaking with man's voice, forbade the madness of the prophet. These are wells without water, clouds that are carried with a tempest, to whom the mist of darkness is reserved forever. You know what I think of when I read this? People who have a form of godliness but deny the power thereof, or they have no power in themselves. There's no Holy Spirit power. There's no Holy Ghost power. Okay? For when they speak great swelling words of vanity, they lay a lure through the lust of the flesh, through much wantonness. Those that were clean escape from them who live in error. While they, in other words, you know what I think of here is these kind of people are, you know, the hyper grace people. I think of the hyper grace people that say, well, you can do pretty much all you want. All you have to do is just believe in Jesus, right? Okay, hyper grace people, they'll eat unclean. They'll keep the worst pagan days. It might even have a Ouija board that they play with, okay? And some of the things I've heard in my time of ministry, you'd be shocked at. And these are people that claim they have lip service, but they deny him in their deeds. For after they'd escaped the pollutions of the world through the knowledge of the Master Savior, Yahushua the Messiah, they are again entangled therein and overcome. The latter end is worse than the beginning. Yeah, if you are messing around with satanic stuff and you fall back again, guess what? What did Yeshua say? He said, a man's soul is like a house that's been cleaned out, swept and clean, okay? So through some move of Elohim, that person is delivered of demonic influence. And then what happens if they go right back, just like a pig back wallowing in the mud, and they receive, they go back into their sin? See? And what happens? Seven more spirits, even worse than the first, will come and inhabit that house. That's similar kind of thing is going on here. Their latter end of them is worse than the beginning. For it had been better for them not to have known the way of righteousness than after they had known it, to turn from the holy commandment delivered unto them. But it has happened unto them according to the true proverb, the dog is turned to his own vomit again, and the sow that was washed were wallowing in the mire. Now, some may wonder, well, why didn't Yahweh, do more to preach to the Sodomites, to the Gomorrahites? Why didn't he, try to say it? Why didn't he send a Jonah to them? Well, yeah, first of all, we're not sure. Maybe he did, and they didn't listen. I don't have any information on that, but there was a summary judgment here. They saw that Lot at least had the traits of Abraham and was showing some hospitality. That was doing right, and they were doing the opposite of that. So they had a witness, but maybe they were just incorrigible. Is that possible? Something to think about. So to sum up this entire portion, we have the travails of Abraham, the travels and travails. I say travails because he was challenged with the sacrifice of his only dear son. But we have also the witness of Abraham, being that he was so close to the Father that even the pagan nations grew to fear and realized, don't mess with this man. It's like what it says, those who bless you, this is Yahweh saying to Abraham, those who bless you, I will bless, and those who curse you, I will curse. So let me pose this to all of you out there. Is it possible that you also have inherited that blessing if you strive to follow our Father's ways, our Heavenly Father's ways? Is it possible you've inherited that? I want to challenge you that if your life is manifesting things that are curses and not blessings. I'm not talking about temptations. Temptation's going to come to you whether you're, but if you are in a state of blessing and you're discerning enough to know that, then this is something that then you could know. That's an aspect of, okay, this is my relationship with our Heavenly Father, purchased the blood of Messiah, but also it goes all the way back to Abraham. Okay, but you'll know. There's a sense of knowing, like historically, if I stepped out of his will and received a just punishment for it, the Bible tells us that he punishes those of us, treats us like sons and daughters, and he punishes those he loves. Okay. You know it. But Abraham, the father of our faith, is a very important person to remember, and to remember the lessons, and to remember his steadfast loyalty to the Father. And the greater the loyalty, the greater the reward. And so that's my hope for all of you as well. Great reward if you show great loyalty to our Father.